Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We will get started here in one moment. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We will start here in one moment. Please hang tight and we'll start shortly. Good morning, everybody. We're going to start here in one moment. Okay. All righty. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us for today's Small Business Boot Camp. It's Tuesday, May 17th. I'm Robert Theobald, Small Business Ombudsman and Vice President of Small Business Services here at the Arizona Commerce Authority. And we're glad to have you with us today. As we like to do at the start of these, we first want to recognize all of our community partners. We could not do these boot camp sessions without our community partners, their time, their effort, and their expertise. If you'd like to jump in, we want to share about the Small Business Boot Camp program itself. It is designed to help small businesses respond, plan, and grow. It is a statewide initiative supported by all of our community partners. And not only is it a webinar that we do every Tuesday morning, 9 a.m., it is a content library and a series of workshops we started for 2022. So let's talk about some of those programs. First is the Small Business Content Library. Back when we started the bootcamp series, we started by recording all of them. And so over the last 2 years, we've amassed a collection of over 200 webinar presentations by our community experts. And those are available to you at no cost on our Small Business Bootcamp website. You can go in and search by different categories. You can see those on the screen there, the 7 different categories you can filter them by. Or if you have questions, feel free to reach out to us and we can guide you to one of those previous sessions we've had with one of our experts that may have some information that you're looking for. I think it's an awesome tool and we hope you can leverage it and use it for your growth. Some other programs that the ACA has is a Small Business Services, our Workforce Division, and our Arizona MEP. These programs help support small businesses and are available to you as well. Again, if you want more details on them, please feel free to contact us and we can get you more information about those programs and connect to the right people, each one of them. Additionally, we have our Small Business Checklist. This is designed to help entrepreneurs with their businesses and identify the commonly requested licensing, registration, and compliance needs at the local, state, and federal levels. You can also find other information on business planning, development, procurement, marketing, and a lot of other topics on that small business checklist. You'll also notice on the screen, there's a little picture of a nice lady there. That is Sally, our state and local licensing information virtual assistant. You can use Sally to identify the quick responses to some of those licensing and registration needs. But for more in-depth and deeper information, you can go right into the checklist and gather that information. So quick update, we want to talk about the So back to work hiring and retention program, the 2.0. The governor recently announced some additional funding for a second round of that program. It is still open. The last I looked at it was open until the end of May. So if you're trying to get on that program, we're going to post the program information in the chat box along with the link to the application window. So let's look at some of our upcoming sessions. So next week, we're having a session on cybersecurity, 5 cybersecurity tips to avoid being hacked. This is an extremely important session. We hope all of you can make it to it. Cybersecurity is a huge topic right now, and from one of the things we're doing it is because we see a lot of businesses kind of just closing their eyes at it and saying, "Oh, it's not going to happen to me." We want to make sure everybody's prepared so they can do the things to help avoid it happening to your small business. Many of us know that a cyber security issue or getting hacked could actually destroy your business. So we want to offer some tips to help you avoid that. Then on May 31st, we're going to have barriers to growth. We've got Donna Hoover with us. She's an amazing individual, and she's going to do a 3-part series. We've got parts 1 and 2 on the 31st and June 7th. And then later in June, we're going to have a follow-up with a 3rd part to that. It's going to be an amazing session, so please join us for those. And with that, we're going to jump into today's webinar. Today we have our speaker, David Rafiti. He's a business coach at David Rafiti Coaching, and he's been with us before and has a great presentation. So David, I'm going to stop sharing and go ahead and turn the time over to you and let you get started. A couple notes before sorry, David, before I turn it over to you, I do want to share a couple things. David's got a lot of great information, so post your Q&A in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and we'll get to those at the end of the presentation if we have time. And he may reach out and have you post some stuff in the chat, but we really want those questions to be left in the Q&A box so that we can answer those or respond to them later if we need to. So with that, David, time is all yours, and we look forward to your presentation.
Thanks very much, Robert. I sure appreciate that. And good morning, everybody. It's great to be with you. Today, I do have a lot of info to go through and a short period of time to do it in. So I'm gonna jump in. Let me get the share screen sharing thing going here. You guys all see that? Hopefully. We good to go?
Yeah, looks good.
Okay, good. So today we're going to talk about what I call gaps, and that is a gap is so we're not. Are you guys seeing what I'm?
No, it's not. It's not forwarding again.
How's that?
It's still not going.
There?
Nope.
Oh boy.
We thought we had this solved. We practiced it this morning a couple times, and we try clicking now.
Yeah, I apologize for that.
Oh, there we go.
Okay. I
That worked.
don't know what happened, but that's good. So a gap is the space between where you are and where you want to be. So essentially, every leader, every business owner, every team, everybody, really, I heard someone say, is between where they are and where they're going to be. And we all, every one of us, has gaps, whether we realize it or not, and hopefully we do. So, you know, there are gaps in the growth of our business. There are gaps in our personal growth, whether it be physical, emotional, spiritual. We have gaps in our professional growth and our leadership skills and behaviors. If you're part of a team or you're leading a team, there's, you know, you've got gaps, could be in alignment or wherever other area. There are environmental, external gaps that we have to manage and work our way through. So it's important to note that we all have gaps. And I call that space between A, which is where we are, and B, which is where we're heading, or where we want to go, as the unknown middle. And you'll notice that squiggly line, the unknown middle is rarely a straight line. Stuff happens, pandemics happen, economic environments change, stuff happens in our personal life that seem derailing at first, or in our relationships. And we have to manage our way to make sure we get to B, which is where we want to go. So I'm going to give you 5 principles. And then after those 5 principles, we're going to talk about 5 steps to get you from A to B. So here's the 5 principles. Number 1, you must be intentional. So that sounds simple. It sounds obvious, but it's amazing how many times I've found in my clients is we get in these ruts. And so we're not intentional, moving very specifically to where we want to be. You must know where you want to go. You need to have a clear picture of that. It'll look like in a couple of sessions coming up in the boot camp, someone's going to be just talking just about that. So you need to know where you're going to go. You need a strategy with measurable action steps to take you there. And here's number 4 is tough for some people. You must be brutally honest with yourself. And then you need accountability. We all need accountability. So in these 5 steps that I'm about to present to you, they'll all fall in within these principles that I just mentioned. And I should say, we're going to get you started on the process if you want to participate in it. But it's only a start because we only have an hour. But I'm going to give you some steps, and I'm going to encourage you to, after we're done here today, to take some time to really fill in those steps to make them meaningful for you. So 5 steps to closing the gaps that you might have in your business, in your profession, or in your life in general. Step number 1 is you need to understand where you are. Now, you must know exactly what that A looks like. Now, again, a lot of you are probably thinking, well, I know where I'm at. I mean, but you'd be surprised when you really dig into that question, just how much information you don't have about where you're at. So a lot of times I'll ask my clients, what is holding you back from achieving what you want to achieve? What's stopping you from getting to B? And that always requires some deeper thinking than maybe we're used to doing, because we all have barriers, obstacles to overcome. Some we can see, some we can't. And we'll talk about that too here in a few minutes. But to know exactly where you're at will require implementing those 5 principles that I mentioned earlier. So here's, let's just take a moment. And here's what I'd like you to do is to prioritize, write down a gap or 2 in your life or business that you want to close. So you're here, you want to get to here. What would be some top gaps? Now, if you do 2, that's a lot. I always tell my clients 2 would be max. 1 is better because you can really focus on the 1, but just take a moment, write down a gap or 2 you'd like to close, and we'll talk about those as we go. While you're doing that, I'm going to apologize. You're going to see me drink some water. I've got whatever it is in my throat this morning. Okay. Again, if you didn't get a chance to finish that, I encourage you to go back. Today, here's step number 2. You need to understand where you want to be. You must have a clear picture of what you want be to look like. And that is your preferred future. You've heard the word vision a lot. Well, you need to know exactly what that looks like. And in my experience as a coach over the years, I found that people might have kind of a fuzzy picture of what their preferred future looks like. Yeah, I'm going to be sailing on my yacht in 20 years or whatever it might be. But a vision or a preferred future must be clear. You must know exactly what that looks like. Now, that may change as you work towards it, but you need to have a destination that you're working towards. Now, in the coaching process, sometimes this is the very first step. And then we go back and deal with what I put down here as step 1. It depends on where you're at. For our purposes, there's no necessarily an order in these two. One of the two has to come first, though. So I've just labeled this one step number 2. So step number 1, you need to know exactly what A looks like, where you're at, and you need to know exactly where you want to go if you want to close that gap. So let's just take a moment again and write down a short but detailed description of where you want to be with regards to the gap that you want to close. So take some time to think through this. Just kind of write down keywords, concepts. You can fill it in later. It just doesn't need to be more than a paragraph. But this is going to help you define what B looks like a lot more clearly than you may know right now. Okay. Again, you'll have time to do this. Step number 3 is understand yourself. Self-awareness is necessary if you're going to close that gap. You are the puzzle to whatever situation you find yourselves in, whatever the economic situation is, whatever happens within your life or relationships, whatever goes on in your business, what happens in your team, you're always there. And sometimes the things that happen are because of who we are. It's important that we understand that there are obstacles that are internal. We all have them. We don't always see them. Those are called blind spots. Now, it's not the spot that's blind, obviously. We're blind to the spot. And you need to be self-aware enough to recognize when you discover what those spots are, to be able to work on changing those. So whatever the area is, whether it's in your business or profession or your life, we have the blind spots. We all have internal obstacles that we have to get through. And I'm just going to encourage you here in a second that being self-aware is the key to any success, really, whether it's relationships or in your business or profession. if you want to progress and make progress. I like this. Oh, you don't have any weaknesses. Excellent, because we really only like to hire people with no self-awareness. I love that. I hate that question in interviews. I'm glad I don't have to interview for things anymore, because that was always hard for me, because I had some blind spots that I didn't realize. So at this point, if you're walking through the process, you've identified a couple of gaps that you want to close. You've you know exactly where you're at, what that looks like, including yourself. So you're self-aware, you've identified some internal obstacles and barriers, and now you just want to change. Now, here's the good news. Step 4 is shifting your thought pattern. So here's the thought. If you keep thinking the same things, and you keep doing the same things, and expecting results to be different, you're going to be disappointed. And here's something that we all inherently know, but don't necessarily think about. And that is, we never do, you never do, I never do anything that we don't think about first. We all have habits, we all have thought patterns, and if we don't adjust those to the new environment we find ourselves in, to the incidents that occur, to the things that happen in that unknown middle, if we're unable to flex and change our habits, change our thought patterns, and that could be negative self-talk. It could be how we approach issues. It could be how we approach relationships, how we interact with our teams or our stakeholders, or whatever the case may be, our customers, our clients. If we don't shift, if we don't change, the odds are we'll be stagnant. Everything will be static, and we will not be able to get to where we want to go. So here's the good news I mentioned a second ago. Neuroscience has discovered this whole idea of neuroplasticity. And what that means is, the good news for you and I is that our brains have the capacity and the ability to form different thought patterns and habits. So our thought patterns are formed over a lifetime, from our homes of origin to our experiences. All those things inform and help shape what our thought patterns are and what our habits are. But because we have habits, because we have thought patterns that may hinder our progress, it's good to know that we can change those things. Now, you need to have a healthy brain, of course, to do that. And so if I were a neuroscientist, which I'm not, I'd be telling you to get enough sleep, eat the right foods, exercise, because your brain, your body, your brain needs that to stay healthy. Now, that isn't going to change your thought patterns or your habits, but it's going to give you a healthy brain to help you do that. So I'm going to share with you how you can change your thought patterns, how you can change your habits. And I call it the replacement principle. So the first part of that is, think about what you're thinking about. So let's just use negative self-talk as an example. Everybody has negative self-talk. a thought comes into your mind, let's just say, man, I can't do that. So just because you're thinking about what you're thinking about, you just grab that thought and hold on to it for a second and compare it to the information that you know, that you have. Well, wait a minute. Of course I can do that. All I have to do is get this information, or I've done that before and I've been successful. Of course I can do it. And so you take that thought you've grabbed, you compare it to the information you know, and then you replace it. You throw it out, throw out the negative one and replace it with the good information, with the truth that you have. When you do this over time, you're going to find that you've developed new habits, that you've changed the way you think about things. So it could be in our environment. So this pandemic has changed a lot of the way that we do business, how we interact with our customers, with our clients. It certainly impacted my business. A lot of it has been negative for many people. But if we don't adjust to the new reality by how we do things, if we keep thinking the same things, if we keep doing the same things, if we have habits that hinder what we need to do to accomplish, to find success, to get to point B, then we need to know what those are, and then we need to begin replacing them with these new habits. And when you do that, you've equipped yourself to maneuver through the unknown middle to get to your destination. You become flexible and quick on your feet. And that's always a good thing. So let's just take a moment. I know I've thrown a bunch of stuff at you in a short period of time, but let's just take a moment. And I'd like you to do this. Brainstorm with yourself a little bit. Write down words that describe how you see the gap you're working towards. So you've identified it, but what does it look like? What are the intricacies of it? You know, just write down a bunch of words, brainstorm, circle the words that seem to show a pattern, and then write a sentence or two description, including the circle words. Just kind of tie them all together. And then that's going to help you get a clearer picture of what B looks like. And it's also going to help you with this next step I'll share here in a second. So just take a moment and do some of that. Okay, I'm just going to keep moving because I want to make sure we have time for questions if you have some. So here's where we're at so far, and this is what the process is like, and this is what if you complete the steps, this is what you're going to know. You're going to know what the gap is that you want to close. You're going to know what your destination looks like in detail. You're going to have a vision, a destination that you want to get to, pardon me. You're going to know you're going to know what hidden barriers you've discovered. And by the way, I should say, obviously, you can't correct those on your own. You can't even, if they're blind spots, you're not going to see them on your own. You're going to need help with that. So you need somebody you can trust to be able to help you with that. But you're going to know what the obstacles are, internal and external. You're going to know yourself so well. You're going to know what strengths you bring to the table and how to use those strengths to get you to where you want to go, how to utilize them, implement them, and go. And then you're going to be working on the change in your thought patterns that you need to make, in the habits that you have that are holding you back instead of helping you to progress. So, so far, that's where we're at. When you've completed those 4 steps, that's where you'll be. And you're getting started on that if you're doing some of these things. It takes some time, so we can't eliminate that. It won't happen overnight, but you're beginning an intentional process of moving from where you are to where you want to be, which will shorten that time. And it won't necessarily make it a straight line because stuff happens, as we all know, but you'll be able to maneuver your way through it in a far more effective way once you've done these 4 steps. So step number 5, I'm always ready to ask, are there any questions? And now we're doing it at the end, so I'll keep going. Step number 5 is strategize on closing the gap. So the plan that you come up with is the roadway to get you to your destination, which is point B, which is your vision for your business or your profession or your life, or whatever the case, whatever gap it is you've chosen that you want to close. And strategizing, and I noticed that you're going to have a boot camp webinar in a couple of weeks on this very subject. So I'm sure they'll get into it with you in great detail. But I will share this with you. Oh, by the way, I really like this cartoon. I will order the chicken salad, and it will be the greatest chicken salad man has ever tasted. I will not be denied. After the goal-setting workshop, Larry's life was never quite the same. And in a sense, it's true, because once you come up with a strategy and you come up with some action steps to implement that strategy, some goals, it can be life-changing. It can change your business. Amazingly, I've found in a lot of my clients is they've never taken the time to, number one, fill out what B looks like, and then develop the strategy to actually take them there. So here's some, you've heard of SMART goals, and I suspect that you're going to hear more about them in a couple of weeks. But a good goal is specific. It's so you need to know that yes, if I do this now, in the next 90 days, it's going to take me to this point. It needs to be measurable. In other words, you need to know you've achieved it. You'll have to look around and say, oh yeah, hey, I did that. It has to be achievable. So if unless you're Elon Musk, and you have a goal of getting to the moon, it's probably not a good goal. It might be a great desire, but it wouldn't be a very good goal. So achievable means that you have to have control of that goal. So if you're dependent on somebody else to achieve the goal you've set, it's not a very good goal. If you have to count on somebody else, then it becomes more of a desire than it is a goal. So achievable means that you have the means within yourself and the resources or whatever it takes to achieve that goal. It needs to be relevant. So, we do a lot of things during the day. A lot of stuff comes our way that and they're important things that we have to do, but they don't necessarily take us to where we want to go, to achieving our vision. And so the goals that we set must be relevant to our objective. It needs to take us to where we want to go. So we may get distracted, but if we have that goal in front of us and it's specific and we can measure it, we know we can do it, we have the resources to accomplish that, then we can go back to that. So if we don't have that and we're constantly distracted, we're going to live in our distractions, and that isn't going to take us anywhere. But it might get us frustrated. It would get me frustrated, put it that way. And they must be time bound. So in other words, they need a due date. You have to be able to say, okay, in 90 days, I've done this. How do I know I've done it? Well, because it's measurable. I'll know when I get there that I'm there. So that's very important to do. So the objective, the vision, the strategy, the map, the roadmap to get to where you want to go need to be SMART. Now I'm going to add another letter to that you hardly ever see, and that's this one. You need someone to hold you. Oh, I just noticed accountability is not spelled correctly. I don't know how that got past my proofer. Anyway, I apologize for that. Well, who will hold you accountable? Who or what? I love this cartoon. Remember, accounting and accountability, nothing in common. My wife doesn't like that joke. She's a senior accountant for a city, and she doesn't think it's funny. But I do. And I apologize. If you're an accountant out there, I apologize to you for using that as a joke. But accountability is critical. We all need it. It needs to be built into your plan. So I would say SMARTA. Think of being an Italian goal setter, SMARTA. We're going to do SMART the goals and build that accountability into your plan. So I have accountability. I need accountability. My wife holds me accountable. I have a trusted friend who's always asking me, hey, how you doing? What's up? And I've got a coach I have a personal coach who always asks annoying questions like, what have you accomplished since we talked last? And that's the thing about accountability. It can be annoying, but it's always good. So when you develop your SMART goals, make sure you also build in to the process accountability, because without that, even the most self-disciplined person, I kind of think of myself as self-disciplined. And if you're a small business owner, you've got to be self-disciplined to accomplish what it is you need to do. So anyway, build in that accountability with somebody you trust, who will be able to, someone that you won't mind asking you, hey, what have you accomplished? Or how's it coming with that goal you said? You said you were going to be at this point by this time. Have you made it? What's stopping you? What's going on? Someone that you can really get down and dirty with and know that it won't go any farther than them. So let's just take a look at what we've talked about as we wrap it up here a little bit. You want to get from A to B. We all do. We're all in process. We're all in between where we are and where we're going to be. The question is, where is it we're going to be? So you and I have a lot to say about what that preferred future looks like. And so it's important that we have that clear picture. And it would be nice if it were a straight shot from A to B, like that little arrow says. But it isn't. It hardly ever is. I mean, sometimes it might be. I've never run into anyone who's had a straight shot at it. I certainly haven't. Because there's zigzags. And if we think of it as a roadmap, sometimes we have to take detours, or sometimes we pull into a rest stop because we're weary. And we know where we're going and we're going to get there, but we need to get some rest. The route to where we want to go is a zigzag. What's important is that we know where it is and we keep on moving towards it, that we're intentional about moving towards it, that we know exactly what we're going to do. Now, here's the thing with goals. They can change. Even our destination sometimes might change because it's down the road, it's in the future. But unless you're moving towards something, you won't be moving. You could be spinning your wheels. You might think you're moving, and 3 years down the road, you're in the same place you were when you started. And then you begin to realize, hey, I'm spinning my wheels. So the other thing you can't eliminate is time. It takes time to get to be. It takes time to change you when you discover what your internal obstacles or barriers are. Excuse me. Time is part of the process. But when you're intentional, when you have a roadmap, that is a strategic plan, goals that are moving you to help you achieve that strategic plan to get you to where you want to go, when you are capable of seeing where you need to change and how to do that, you'll maneuver your way through it. And the time is shortened a great deal. And here's the amazing thing, you actually get to where you're going. And you can look back with satisfaction that you were able to accomplish what it is you set out to accomplish. And everyone has the capacity. Our brains were designed that way to be able to change and shift and develop new habits to get us to where we need to go. Just one last thing. My job is to help people actually do all those things to get to be. So if you'd like a conversation, you want to explore a little bit more, a little more deeply, a lot more deeply, there's my contact info. Feel free to use it. But I didn't put on there, for whatever reason, was my website, davidthecoach.com. It's easy to remember. I'm happy to have a conversation with you. So Robert, there we go. Do we have any questions? I really zipped through it, I know.
Well, we got some time left, so please share your questions in the Q&A at the bottom of the screen. Great presentation. I know there's always gaps in our goals and things, and really struggling at times and understand where we are. Sometimes we are not real clear with ourselves, or we don't understand where we actually are in the process and have that good idea. But I really like the mapping piece because the map's never straight. You look at every road, map's always got the turns in it, the lefts and the rights, the ups and the downs. And so, but having an idea where you want to go is very important. I mean, if you get in your car and you go somewhere, you know where you're going, right? You just don't get in and go, okay, I'm going to turn left here. Right? I'm going to turn right there. Just randomly pick and choose at each stop. So,
and I like to think of our vehicles as the goals. You know, they're the ones that are going to take us down the road. And sometimes we get a flat, we have to change tires, or, you know, the car breaks down and we need to get a new vehicle to get us to where we go. So we shift and we change our goals. And the important thing is we keep heading towards that destination.
So we had a question from Sam that doesn't relate to this, but Sam, the previous webinars are in the content library on our Small Business Bootcamp website. You scroll down the page and you can find those previous webinars. All right, we got a question in there from Sterling. Says, thank you so much for this presentation. This is honestly one of the best presentations I've ever seen. No, also thank you for your contact info. I didn't respond in time. I was paying attention to you. Thanks. So great, thank you. Appreciate that, Sterling. Love to hear those comments from our participants. So thank you very much. So you got.
I know I threw a bunch of info out there.
So yeah, there's definitely a lot of information, but it's good. It's got a good roadmap to it as well. So I appreciate that. Again, if you have any questions you want to bring up, you know, specific to your business and finding that gap and, you know, where you are now and where you want to be, we can talk about it. We got a little bit of time left, but we can also wrap up early, give some people time back in their day. There's never a problem with that. We're always, lots of us have lots of meetings and time, so those extra few minutes can be valuable. So with that, I don't see any other questions.
Okay.
So pretty quiet group, but that's okay. We got some great responses from people that enjoyed it. So that was the main thing, that everybody's able to get something out of this and take it back and apply it to your business.
Hope it was helpful.
So Samuel's asking again on the content library. If you go to azcommerce.com/small-business-boot-camp. And Josh just posted there in the chat. So the link in the chat for the content library is right there. You can go to that and find the previous sessions. We do have another question pop up. Oh, it's not a thank you from Don. Says, thank you, very thought-provoking. Great feedback.
Glad it was helpful.
So with that, we don't have any other questions. So we will go ahead. One last question. Good question. Says, one last question. How do you manage business 2 to 3 projects or startups? Also, where should I advertise to reach local demographics for cheap? On the local demographics for cheap, Sterling, I would check out some of our marketing-based webinars and some of the previous sessions we've done recently. There's some great information on that. I'd take a whole webinar or 2 to touch on that. Great question on how do you manage 2 to 3 business projects?
With a lot of energy. I think I saw a little bit of that. If we're talking startups, you know, get the put a team around you that you need. I mean, the library that was mentioned is a great help. Small Business Development Center is a big help too for startups. I would definitely check them out. There's no cost to the services they provide. As far as planning goes, you know, these steps that we talked about applies to whatever it is you're going to do, and it sounds like you've got a big plate full, and being organized is really critical if you're going to do that. And if you need some help doing that, I would advise getting that. And I think, again, the Small Business Development Center, I'm aware of them. I'm assuming, Robert, you probably have some resources you could share as well. To do that, I wouldn't hesitate to be intentional in putting this network around me to help me get that done.
Yeah, great point there. The being intentional on the network, whether it's SBDC, SCORE, other programs. With the 2 to 3 business projects too, if they're projects that are going to compete for your time, you might end up with 2 to 3 average projects. Whereas it may be more beneficial for your company and your business, the direction it's going, to have one outstanding project completed and then go to the next one and make that outstanding. So really look at that to make sure you can pull off 2 to 3 outstanding projects at the same time versus just ending up with 2 to 3 average project completions. So good question. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, with that, we'll wrap up. We'll go ahead and give everybody about 9 minutes back to their day. So we're glad to have you with us. We'll let you take some breaks before your next meeting and whatnot. But we appreciate you being here. We look forward to having you with us next Tuesday, 9 a.m. and talk about cybersecurity. And so please join us for that one, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Robert.